You're right. Life isn't fair, but you've got to take responsibility for your own decisions anyway. You've been given great power, Peter, and because of that, you've got a great responsibility. You can help those who aren't as strong as you, or you can continue down a destructive and selfish path. Ask yourself, what would your Aunt May be the proudest? Quote, Ben Parker. What if Aunt May had died instead of Uncle Ben? Volume 1, Issue 1. We all know that Spider-Man's heroic career was inspired by Uncle Ben's death after his speech about great power and great responsibility. But what if Uncle Ben wasn't the one who died? What if Peter's mother figure, Aunt May, had been the one in the path of the bullet? How different would Peter's life have been? Many times you have heard Spider-Man's origin story, but today you will hear the origin story from Stu, comic book cave's owner, talking to a customer, Jerry. Stu could possibly be a watcher. So like Spider-Man, right? He's like this total geek who gets bit by this radioactive spider, and right away he turns into a superhero, gets all these powers from this tarantula or whatever. Not a tarantula, looked more like a brown recluse maybe. Whatever, listen, cause this is the good part, right? What does he do with these powers? After all these years of being pushed around by in the crowd, he goes and gets on TV, becomes this big star, and that's all he cares about. He's making bank. Girls are falling for him all over him, but the world just can't give him the poor schmuck a break. He doesn't stop some freaking time crook, and a few days later, his Uncle Ben is killed by the very same guy he let escape. Talk about bad luck, right? Jerry the customer. It's not bad luck, Stu. That's how Peter Parker learns his lesson. The whole, with great power, there must also come great responsibility thing. I know that, Jerry. Still, just listen, okay? So now Peter Parker has not only caused the death of his uncle, but he's got to take care of Aunt May, who's all alone in the world now. And that's what we never think about when we talk about Spider-Man and what makes him a hero. Aunt May. It was all those years of living with Aunt May that shaped the hero that Spider-Man would become. Because it's not for her, this mother figure that he has to care for and keep his secret from, who would have been maybe, what are you talking about, Stu? I am talking about what if Aunt May had been killed instead of Uncle Ben? In an alternative universe, Peter Parker returns home to find that Aunt May had been shot dead by a burglar. In the rage, he reveals to Uncle Ben that he is Spider-Man. He then takes off and hunts down the burglar. Spider-Man tracks down the burglar. As the burglar shoots at Spider-Man, he relies on his spider sense and agility to skillfully dodge all the bullets. The police hear the bullets being fired but are uncertain about the target. On the fourth floor, Spider-Man lands a blow that knocks the killer's hat off. Spider-Man remarks, "Not as easy as killing a defenseless old woman, is it?" As he sees the face of the man he allowed to escape, he realized the gravity of his actions. The burglar insists on giving himself up, and Spider-Man, removing his mask to reveal Peter Parker, confronts him saying, "I let you go and you killed her. You killed her," in a rage. Peter's anger becomes uncontrollable, but instead of throwing the burglar outside of the window, he terrifies the killer so much that the burglar scrambles backwards and accidentally goes right out the window, much like a scene from a movie. Unfortunately, the burglar does not survive the fall, and when the police arrive, they believe someone intentionally threw the burglar out of the window. Exactly what Uncle Ben feared comes to pass. He does the only right thing left to do, instructing Peter to hide in the shadows and remain silent. However, Peter confesses that it was him. Uncle Ben, in a selfless act, takes the rap for his only child. As Peter Parker watches from the ceiling, the last piece of his shattered life is taken away. The police assert that Uncle Ben couldn't just let them handle the situation, and Uncle Ben to save his nephew and his son. Uncle Ben confesses to a murder he did not commit. Uncle Ben receives lenient sentence, but he still has to go to jail to protect Peter and his secret. What many people forgot is that Peter was 15 or 16 when he became Spider-Man. With no guardians to stay with him, he enters the system and becomes a ward of the state. A angrier kid would be hard to find, and Peter blames himself for the death of Aunt May while Uncle Ben is in jail. Attempts to place him with various foster homes fail as he acts out, displaying intense anger towards the world. The weight Spider-Man carries around becomes even more burdensome because he feels like a liar, a coward, for not stopping the man who killed Aunt May due to his self-centeredness. Despite this, Uncle Ben reassures him, saying, "Don't worry about me, kiddo. With good behavior, I'll be out of here in no time. You just take care, and whatever you do, don't get into any more trouble." Peter promises Uncle Ben not to worry, assuring him that the troublesome part of his life is over. Uncle Ben, however, remains concerned that if Peter resumes being Spider-Man, he might go too far again, as he did on that fateful night, Little did Uncle Ben know, Peter wants nothing to do with Spider-Man. Spider-Man simply disappears, leaving the entire city wondering why he has vanished. While he is wallowing in self-pity, Spider-Man is absent for his first significant heroic act. J. Jonah Jameson's son dies, the same astronaut Spider-Man was intending to save in another alternate universe. John Jameson dies in the shuttle crash, intensifying J. Jonah Jameson's hatred for Spider-Man even more. Jameson concludes that Spider-Man is a bad influence on kids. He believes children might try to imitate Spider-Man only to end up injured, and that's just the beginning of the potential consequences if society continues to celebrate a figure he deems lawless and a human monster. Editorial after editorial attacks Spider-Man, naming him a masked menace. Finally, Peter Parker confides in his friends, expressing that he has heard enough of this lunatic's ranting. Because Peter can't tolerate it anymore, despite his internal conflict and dislike for Spider-Man, he can't sit idle by a while. J. Jonah Jameson badmouthed him incessantly. With no one else to think about but himself, Peter does something he would never otherwise do. Sneaking out that night, he pays J. Jonah Jameson a late visit at the Daily Bugle. He throws Jameson out of the window as Jameson screams, "Ah, let me go, you freak." Spider-Man responds, "Sure, that's what you want, flat top." Spider-Man asks Jameson if he would like to drop him out the window because he'd be more than happy to oblige right now. Jameson begs him not to do it. Jameson asks, "What do you want from me?" Spider-Man responds, "What do you think? You just run all over town badmouth me for no good reason, and I'll just ignore it? You don't know anything about me, and you're calling me a menace. What gives you the right?" Jameson answers, my son died." Spider-Man concludes, "And you think you're the only one who's ever had someone they love die? Look around you, you little Hitler. The city's full of them, so consider this your one and only warning. Leave me alone, or I'll show you what a menace really is." As Jameson cries over his lost son, the tension between them hangs in the air. Spider-Man feels pretty good about himself for the first time since the whole mess began. He knows he went over the line, but he just doesn't care. Still, the comic book store owner thinks Spider-Man just doesn't have the moral center that he should. He's angry, possessing superpowers, yet all he's done is make his life worse. Consequently, he's turning a bit darker. Spider-Man lands in Juvenile Hall, and to his surprise, his friends Flash Thompson and Harry Osborn there as well. Both had drugs found in their lockers. After a week, Harry's wealthy father pulls some strings to get him out, leaving Pete with the realization that the only person he knows inside is Flash, his school bully, and nothing has changed. It's just too much for him to handle. Despite promising Uncle Ben that he wouldn't be Spider-Man anymore, a single instance of breaking his promise ends in disaster. Unable to endure life behind bars with Flash, making him a target, he knows he's destined to do something drastic sooner or later. Therefore, he escapes, running away to live on the streets, relying on his wits to get by. For a 16-year-old kid on his own in New York, being Spider-Man is the only way to navigate this challenging reality. He finds empty buildings to live in, constantly moving from place to place every week or two. He acquires the essentials he needs, food, clothing, and chemicals for his web fluid. However, he can often resorting to stealing them in the dead of the night. While he's not proud of these actions, as far as he's concerned, it's better than returning to the juvenile hall and letting the world continue to push him around. This isn't the life he initially set out for, but at least he's free. Observing other people in the city with powers similar to his own and witnessing how they use them, he decides to take a page from their book and become a somewhat superhero. However, he becomes a superhero not solely for the altruistic purpose of saving the city, but as another means of survival. As he fights Dr. Octopus, his motivation is not driven by desire to protect the city, but rather for a reward, something Spider-Man cannot pass up. As he continues his superhero endeavors, he ends up facing many of the same foes he has encountered before, such as the Vulture. Additionally, he encounters foes like the Lizard in his ongoing superhero pursuits. However, only when he first faces the Green Goblin that a mission holds more significance than just a reward for services rendered. It's at this moment that Spider-Man sees the true capabilities of these adversaries, as the Green Goblin's actions have led to numerous deaths, deeply disturbing Spider-Man. The senseless deaths remind him of his own culpability in Aunt May's death, and he goes a bit berserk. Spider-Man exclaims, "That's enough. These people had family, children, parents, and friends who loved them. How can that mean anything to you? You're the one that's going to be stopped." He stands over the fallen form of the Green Goblin, thinking he has killed him. His old mistakes come back to haunt him, and he utters, no, I didn't mean to." "Oh no," Spider-Man says again. The death of Aunt May is compounded by Uncle Ben going to jail to protect Peter. Unfortunately, Peter didn't learn his lesson that he otherwise would have. Being good and strong for Aunt May made him embrace the great responsibility of being Spider-Man. However, this Peter Parker is just thrust from one bad situation situation into another, always seeing it as his own fault. Fortunately for him, the Green Goblin doesn't die. The world discovers Norman Osborn's secret identity, leading Osborn being sent off to Bellevue for analysis under guard. Despite this turn of events, Peter is still downward spiral, lacking a center in his life and feeling guilty for everything. He perceives an injustice in the world as Harry's dad, who kills people as the Green Goblin, is sent to a psych ward. Despite Uncle Ben doing nothing but trying to protect him, he is rotting away in prison, and Peter feels it is his fault. Consequently, he decides to break Uncle Ben out. Spider-Man rips the steel bars off the walls. Uncle Ben awakens as Spider-Man says, "It's me, Uncle Ben. I've come to get you out." Peter, talking to his Uncle Ben, urges, "Come on, we haven't got long before the guards arrive. Let's go. I'll carry you out." Uncle Ben refuses, and Spider-Man questions his decision, saying, "You're in jail. I can get you out of here." Uncle Ben responds, "This is not the way." Peter insists, "I need you, Uncle Ben. I'm all alone out there. I'll make more mistakes." Uncle Ben says, "Peter, listen to me. What we have out there, we'd be on the run from the law. That's no life for either of us, and it's certainly not what May would want. I'm here because I made a choice. I took responsibility for my child. I wanted to save you from this fate, Peter." Spider-Man responds, "But it's not fair. Everything I try to do just turns out wrong, Uncle Ben. This whole world is against me, and it's just not fair." "You're right. Life isn't fair, but you've got to take responsibility for your own decisions. Anyway, you've been given great power, Peter, and because of that, you've got a great responsibility. You can help those who aren't as strong as you, or you can continue down a destructive and selfish path. Ask yourself, what would you make your Aunt May proudest?" Peter then takes off his mask and says to Uncle Ben, "I want to confess. I had a chance to stop the killer a few days before he broke into our house." Peter places the responsibility of Aunt May on Peter Parker. Peter concludes, "A guard was after him and I let him run by me. I didn't get involved, Uncle Ben." Uncle Ben then says, "It's okay, Peter. You couldn't know, and you can't keep carrying the weight. You didn't make the maniac killer kill May." Then Peter insists, "But I could have stopped them. I could have." Uncle Ben says, "In life, the only second chances you get are the ones you give yourself. You can't go back and change what happened, but you can change the future." Uncle Ben continues, "I've spoken to Miss Watson, the neighbor, and she wants to take care of you until I get out of here. If you return to society, finish school, and apply to college, it might be hard, but I know you can do it. It's time for you to grow up, Peter." Uncle Ben concludes, "It's time to honor May's memory." He listens to Uncle Ben, and as a result, he starts to heal inside. Peter moves in with Mary Jane's aunt and successfully finishes his school with honors. He then goes off to Empire State University on a science scholarship. Meanwhile, while living with her aunt, he meets MJ, and let's face it, he hits the jackpot with her. They become all hot and heavy. Okay, sure, during those 5 years, Spider-Man isn't seen too much. Occasionally, something big comes up that only he can handle, and he goes for it. However, his main focus is on being a person that would make his aunt and uncle proud. Then the moment arrives when his Uncle Ben gets parole. The judge announces, based on the years of good behavior, Benjamin Parker is given an early parole back into society. Uncle Ben's parole plays a significant role because, as well, we'll see, Uncle Ben had previously given Peter the speech about great power and great responsibility. Upon his release, Uncle Ben helps Peter put this idea into action, making a positive impact for Spider-Man. Peter embraces the notion, finding value in the concept as well. They become a team, with Uncle Ben serving as a tactician. He drives around with police scanners and communicates with Spider-Man via radio, coordinating efforts as Spider-Man battles villains. "Uncle Ben, how many times do I have to tell you? Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is always ready." Comic book owner concludes, Peter Parker had a big weight. He always carried it around, and as a result, he could not grow beyond. This is Spider-Man, and he finally understands the concept of great responsibilities after years of denying it. Instead of resisting it, he accepts the responsibility gladly. Stu, the comic book store owner, says, "I am not the Watcher," but on Stu's shirt, it says, "For I am the Watcher." Notes, a poster for Spider-Man film can be seen displayed in the comic book shop. This is the second story to show what happened if Uncle Ben lived instead of Aunt May. The first was What If, Volume 1, Issue 46. Next issue, What If Doctor Doom had become the Thing, Volume 1, Issue 1.